So, the last time I put together a video talking about powerlifting, I feel like my thoughts were pretty scattered, to say the least, or even more on the pessimistic side of things, even though now that I'm 25 years old and I've been competing in the sport for approximately 7 years, I'm the strongest I've ever been. And looking back on that, I still feel like what I said is valid and those feelings were valid, but now we're looking forward to something just a little bit different. And that's because I decided to compete here in about 3 months. So I'm thinking that over the course of the next 3 months, I will spend more time kind of documenting my meet prep and kind of like the highs and lows of said meet prep, especially now that I'm out of school. And I feel like it's something that I can much more readily dedicate my energy to. So, being a student going through meet prep is something that, I had a ton of experience with, but the issue with each of those preps is the fact that, you've got your reality, which is totally dependent on you performing academically. And if you're in a more challenging major, you don't really have the same amount of, I guess, real estate that you could dedicate to powerlifting. Whereas now that I'm an adult and I have kind of like the resources and a bit more of stability, I feel that being able to enter this prep and just kind of like take care of certain variables I didn't have complete control of before should just yield a better outcome. Now, I will be competing at a heavier weight class. I started at the 83 kilo weight class about 7 years ago, and since then I've gained weight over the course of several years to now be able to compete within the 110 kilo weight class. So I'll be competing at about 242. We've got a new weight class, we've got new competitors. I'm in the open now, so I'm going up against you know grown men who are much stronger than some of the junior competitors I used to deal with before. And all of this is really interesting because although it's been something that's been a part of my life for a while, I feel like this could be kind of a new beginning for myself within the sport. So I'm excited to see where things can go over the next 3 months, especially given now that I'm pretty locked in on nutrition. Thankful for my fit foods being something that I have access to, and recovery is something that I'm in much better control of just because, I'm not really staying up to study for an exam and only sleeping 6 hours on the regular. Like now, I'm in a position where I can pretty regularly get upwards of 7 hours of sleep without it being a huge issue. And stress, you can't really avoid stress in, I guess, the working world, but I feel as though there's a lot more ways to manage it, just as far as being able to take time off or do things that are a bit more supportive of you relieving stress. So, with all that being said, we're going into a new meet prep. I'm excited to see where it could go. The current goals, as far as the prep go, are primarily set upon nationals. So, if you're unfamiliar with how qualification for USAPL nationals goes, it's really more so based on a total that you can achieve, which is, the successful combination of all three lifts. But that has to be achieved at either a state or regional level. So you can no longer compete at a local, I believe, you can no longer achieve your qualifying total at a local meet. And so, with that being said, I'm competing at the Texas State Championships here in January. I'm excited to go back to San Antonio to compete at TSS just because that's where I got my start within the sport. My first two meets were there. Didn't have a coach, didn't have a handler, just kind of went out there and had a good time. But being able to revisit that after so many years will be very cool. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the USAPL qualifying totals, uh, the totals that they initially released prior to September 14th were something that caused a bit of uproar within the community because quite a few people felt that they were not very achievable and that it was alienating a good number of people within the sport. And so, following 914, they decided to update the totals to make them a bit more friendly to the masses And for my current specific weight class, I would need to achieve a total of 782.5 kilograms, which I'm not going to lie to you, that's something I'm more than confident in my ability to achieve just based on the fact that that's something I think I've already done in training on more than one occasion, whether that be like training for a meet or training under my current coach for this block anyway, based off of the caps or the limits that my coach has imposed upon me for my primary sessions. I'm supposed to be able to put together an 815 kilogram total. And with that being the goal, and with his cap selection historically being pretty solid, pretty confident in my ability to hit that. And that would also be a 15 kilogram PR over what I've ever previously hit. So I'm excited to do that and finally kind of break new ground, because if you're not familiar with my history in the sport anyway, my current best total was achieved in March of 2022, where I put up 800 kilograms on the dot at just under 100 kilograms body weight. And that was a solid meet, 9 for 9 meet, which I've got plenty of those. But finally being able to add to that after, dealing with multiple different injuries, whether that be like the larger significant back injury that kind of stalled my training, or the micro injuries that pop up while going through the process of getting stronger. It's still exciting to finally see that movement that I feel like I've been working towards for the longest. And even within training right now, just seeing my top end numbers continually get pushed further and further while being under Carrington, because of, the significant like squat PRs that I've had recently, or bench PRs that have been pretty linear, where we're constantly seeing that 2.5 kilogram like growth on bench, which is a really challenging lift for me. I'm very excited to see what's possible to end up with on the platform. And then finally, deadlift. Deadlift used to be my bread and butter. That used to be something that I kind of always could count on. But as you gain body weight and your body, changes, it can become a little bit more difficult. And I'm definitely dealing with that currently. So we'll see how much improvement is truly available when it's time to compete. Now, I'm not really just going to give away the numbers, but hopefully over the course of the next 3 months, we can kind of start to see how things shape up. And I'll be really excited to report on the numbers that we finally can land on at the end, whether that be just at the end of prep in our projections, or at the end being the final meet. So, with all that being said, I do kind of want to review where training currently stands with regards to my numbers, as far as what I've been able to achieve under my new coach in the past couple of months. Because I believe we're currently on our 4th block, and in that amount of time, I've been able to hit 617 as my best squat double, 358 for my best bench triple, my best bench single of, I believe, 402 as it currently stands. I had a rough lockout attempting 694 for a triple. And all of this, will just be showing you as I list it off. And let's see what else. We also achieved a pause single on deadlift at 716. So as we get closer and closer to meet day, I'll continuously be mindful in tracking my nutrition and body weight, just to make sure that I'm not bleeding over the weight class, and if anything, increasing activity slightly, just to help me kind of bring things back down into check a little bit more. But overall, these numbers are pretty significant in regards to what I had achieved previously. I didn't quite get to a point where I was able to beat my PR double on deadlift, just because that's not something that's been on the program quite yet. But that previous PR being 705, and this block, we're dealing with singles and our standard back down sets of 6. That's not something that I imagine I'll be able to tango with anytime soon. But hopefully in the future, that'll be something that I can fly on past, especially given having previously hit like a pause single with 716, it's like, okay, there's room to kind of grow here. So with that being said, for previous bests, just looking at how this current block is set up, should be squatting in the neighborhood of 640 pounds, should be benching in the neighborhood of 407, and deadlifting about 750. So that gives me a total of 1797, which when we convert that to kilograms, we're looking at about 815. Solid 15 kilo PR. Very excited to achieve that. Hopefully it won't be nearly as difficult as I imagine it to be, but I think given the context of my training being much more on the lower end in terms of dealing with intensity and not really straying towards singles, but just, heavy triples or even sets of 4 or 5. Believe things will get easier as I can get acclimated towards it. So we'll just see how this goes, man. So I think that about covers it for everything that I want to just kind of like announce within this first video of our Texas State Champ prep series. Ooh. So check out the playlist, because if we're doing a series, we might as well make a playlist. The goal kind of going forward will just be weekly review. So that way I can just kind of like deliver thoughts on how I feel like everything's going. And other than that, hope to talk to y'all next week. Thanks for watching.